And welcome back. So I literally just finished recording my other video, so you're going to see my inky fingers from the Soyuz pen. And let's go ahead and just start showing this Moore pen and get it taken apart. And I'll give it a quick overview. Here's the brass cap that looks very beat up, a lot of tarnish on it. Cap, a little bit of a ding right there. We have this kind of bolted in clip, pretty tight, and all we get is Moore with a nice interlocking O's, quite worn as well. Few lines for decoration, and we'll pull off the cap to show our kind of, I don't know, semi-hooded or faux hooded thing. And we have this kind of smaller nib, probably not tubular, fitted over a simple feed. We have a little ring for the cap. I'm not sure that's a break or it's made that way, but we'll take that off and see. We have this very simple, I'll zoom in just see if we can see anything on it. Very simple blue body. Am I seeing anything that looks like an imprint? I don't think so. So a lot of usual wear. Nothing major, nothing super deep. We have a little bit of a gouge down here at the bottom, maybe teeth marks, can't quite tell, but there's a little bit of roughness down here, right there as well. Looks like a little staining maybe. And then if we come back up here, look at the light, it looks like it's a little bit warped, like it's just ever so slightly kind of warped in this little area, but that does not, zoom back out, prohibit it from unscrewing and screwing on. So it's still pretty tight, still nice and serviceable. So let's take this lefty loosey, and I've already pre-done this so the sack's not going to fall out, but we have kind of the threaded connector here, and what I did was a little bit of heat and some twisting, and there it goes, still loose. So I'm just going to twist this off. It's on a section right under the threads. See it making its way. It is tight. I don't think I'll have to shellac it back on, but ooh, careful. There we go. And there is a nipple underneath. So as you're taking this off, don't suddenly bah like that. You'll have a nipple right under here for the sack. And there's a little bit of sack still left on there. See that little shininess outside of the more dull black. A little sack remnant right there. And of course, sack goes on here. And here's a little pressure bar. And looking at the back, I took my knockout dowels. I took the medium one. And all this one I had to do. And just push it out. There we go. It's a little J-bar, actually. And I like this particular kind of J-bar because it has the extra kind of rivets up here. So when you press it down, it kind of, rather than just kind of pushing here, it kind of pushes and squeezes along the entirety of the sack. So I like these because they really compress that sack evenly to give you a good fill. So I'm really happy that this is the kind we have. And it looks pretty serviceable. It's pretty tight. Maybe a little light surface, I don't know if I can call it corrosion, maybe it is, but the chrome or that shininess, something's built up on it. So I'll see if I can take my wire Dremel tool or maybe just some sandpaper and just kind of sand this up a little bit, but it looks like it's going to be serviceable and I'm super happy about that. Let's take a look at our little kind of aerometric casing, I guess we can call it. Definitely a knockoff of the aerometric filler, the squeeze filler in a sense. So that should clean up really well. Let's see if we can get that little ring. I'm just going to take my fingernail, just going to start running it and see if I can undo it. There we go. And I'll take my loop, but I don't know that that was one piece or not. I bet it wasn't, because that allowed me to kind of flex and take it off. So I'm betting that it's not, but I'll take my loop and see what that looks like on the inside. The only other thing I'm going to think about, and we'll see, I'm not going to do too much because there's a little metal lip right there. So that kind of makes me think that this could be taken apart even more. Maybe this is something that kind of screws out of this hood. So once I get done soaking and maybe try a little heat, I'm going to try maybe see if I can fully undo that. But I don't think we necessarily have to. It might be one of those things that if it's adhered, if it's good, you don't have to worry about it. But I'm going to go ahead and see my small dowel. A couple little tries. Doesn't want to budge, so what I'm going to do is let the soaking happen, see if I can get any ink residue. Maybe have to apply some heat or a little slightly warm water, but I'm going to wind up doing that nib knockout, and me doing that didn't do a thing. So that will be what we see when we come back. I'll have what I can polish polished, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive on this guy. So I think I'm going to try to take the sandpaper, go through several grits and even work it down with the micromesh to really get a nice surface that's clean. And I'm going to try my little electroplating just to see if I can get some gold on this, because I think I can plate over brass or whatever this might be. It looks like brass. So we'll see how that turns out, see if we can get a nice shiny cap. I will do my classic polishing on this, and what I really like about it is there's nothing I have to worry about, so I will polish and sand with abandon, nothing to imprint, no imprints to go over. If anything, that might help smooth out a couple little lips from these gouges, and it'll probably still be there, but at least it'll look a little bit more smooth. I will take my metal polishes and I'll just work on this. This doesn't have to be super amazing. Take my Dremel tool with the wire brush, maybe a little bit of sandpaper just to knock off anything that I can, make this look a little bit better. And like I say, I'll try a little bit of soaking, a little bit of heat, see if this comes off any more, but then I'm going to worry about knocking this out. So we'll see this more taken apart and the rest of it looking nice, and I will go ahead and polish everything even when I get it apart. So we'll see it polished, put it back together, and we'll do our rating sample. So we will see you when that looks better. Okay, let me go ahead and show you just a quick interlude. I got everything polished up and ready for the next step, which will be my plating, but just want to show you quickly how everything kind of turned out. Got a nice bright shiny blue out of the barrel. Did a little bit of like little hand sanding. I probably still need to do a little bit more to this, but the little lever bar, J-bar, has come out quite nicely. Here is the hood with the little ring put back on. I could not get this apart, and I didn't want to keep fussing with it, so I left that as a unit, though it probably would unscrew out of that hood unit, I suppose. And here is the nice shiny kind of sack casing, so I like the way that turned out. Didn't really have to do anything special, just kind of polish it up, put some polishes in there with a Q-tip, and worked its magic. So that one looks really good. Here's the feed, simple, shiny, clean. Here is the nib. It was gold plated, and it looks like it does have a little bit of corrosion, a little bit of pitting, but it's nothing that I think we can't use, because it's kind of down here, more maintained in that hooded section where ink and things kind of just stood on it. So this is a steel nib, a little punched out hole there, a little just kind of machined and crimped nib tip here, and the bottom doesn't look too bad. So I'm going to go ahead and just make sure it's clean and do a little bit of gold plating just to kind of see if I can protect that for any further. And then here's the question I kind of wanted to ask myself, and I think I've committed, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. But just polishing the cap, I started with some sandpaper, the 220, 400, 800, went down through my micro mesh and did the polishes as well. It turns out really well. This does look like it's brass. It's got a nice yellow sheen to it, but it kind of looks so nice just the way it is. And so I guess I'm left with the same dilemma I think I had on the, was it the glider? I forget what other pen I had that I did a metal part and it just looked really good. It's like, dang it, do I commit myself to the next step? But you know, it is brass, it's going to corrode, or not corrode, but tarnish really quickly. So if I'm going to go ahead and plate the nib, I might as well go ahead and plate this. But I mean, this looks really nice. Let me just see if I can have some contrast with the blue. I mean, that looks again like a nice solid work pen. So it's hard to want to take this away, but this will tarnish. So I think I will do the gold, and that'll be the next bit in the video. So we'll see this when we come back as gold plated here, gold plated here. Okay, well, let me show you what I've been up to. I went ahead and did the gold plating, and I think it turned out quite well on this cap. You can definitely see it's more of a striking yellow color, and I think this one turned out really well. And I'll show it off a little bit more later. And then of course we have the nib, which did okay. The top definitely did some plating. It was, you know, I can still see some pitting because it's not going to fill in plating, it'll just coat the pitting. So under the loop you can still see the pitting there. And the bottom did okay. It wasn't as well prepped, so it's not as, you can see that little bit of silver in amongst the gold. So the bottom didn't do quite so well. And you know, I repeated the process, and I think this is the best I'm going to get for now. And you know, weighing the effort I'm going to put in this particular nib, which is, you know, it's okay but not great, but I think I at least did some good cosmetic stuff, because you know, once it's in the feed, we're really going to be seeing this kind of area, and if that. So I think the plating is where it needs to be for now, and I'm not going to make this the most perfect replated nib I've ever done. Let's go ahead and get it. Oh, I might as well show this as well. I took the metal brush, my Dremel tool, just to shine this up a little bit, so it got the little bit of whatever was caked on here. I don't know if it's corrosion or buildup, but there definitely was a coating. Maybe it's a chrome or some other kind of plating that's on this stainless steel. So get a little bit of the lines of that, cleaned it up. This area cleaned up pretty well. And so I think we're in a good spot. And I decided not to plate this thing. This just seemed a little bit ridiculous to try to plate it. So we'll have nice stainless steel inner and some gold plated outer. So let's go ahead and get these things back together. I think we should just go ahead and see if we can put the nib and feed back in. See how tight that's going to be. And again, all I did to really get these things apart to begin with was really soaking. And then I took a little dowel up through the bottom, was able to tap out the nib and feed. So that soaking is key, because once I soaked it and got a lot of the residue out, didn't even have to use heat, didn't even have to use a lot of force. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of align the nib and feed, just kind of choose a place where I think it feels right. There we go. And we're going to set that in there, and I'm going to use the table. Whoa, there we go. Might need to use a little something to help me grip it. Or the other thing I like to do, I think you've seen me do this before, is find a place where I get good support in this nib block. So maybe I can zoom out or just change a little bit. And that gives me a good place to push down so I'm not on the nipple, and I can really just bear down and feel secure that I'm not going to be messing up the nipple part here. Well, what hole is I in? It's pretty good. Go a little bit further. There we go. That looks pretty good. And that does look pretty good. It's the feed is in there. You see it kind of peeking out. We get the breather hole. We get the feed still behind the shoulders. And I'll compare it. I may push it down a little bit more, but that feels about right to what we had. And it might do just to go down just another little push. But I think at this point it's just kind of aesthetics. So I'm going to push and see if it goes up any little more. Not really. So I'm not going to fuss with that. So I'm just going to leave it here, just like this. And take that little thing. Polish my nib. Okay. So So let's go ahead and get the little ring back on. And I do believe that this was made to be this kind of a thing, so that what you do is put it on here and you just kind of wind it around, get one edge on and let it just kind of wind around, flip in. So I think it was meant to be in a piece like that. So now let's go ahead and get my pre-cut size. Let's move this down, 14 sack. We'll get our shellac. We will address the nipple. Just gonna tap it all around. That looks pretty juicy. This is gonna be the tight fit because it's kind of 15 would have been fine. 14 is just as good. But considering that I'm putting a sack in a pressure bar in a tighter space, I went into the size 14. Plus with this particular pressure bar, with it being able to distribute, I figured the 15-14 size difference is not going to make a big deal. It seems like I'm counting on this pressure bar to give a good fill. And I just had a lot of 14s I don't use too often, so when I have a borderline one, I just kind of opted to use something I just don't get to put on too many pens right now. So there's that. All the little kind of nitpicky decisions you kind of get to make with some of these pens. And they're not right or wrong, I don't suppose, but if you can justify it and it makes sense, it's going to be okay. Put some good talc. And we'll get the kind of aerometric thing back together. So let's push this in. Let's see how best to do it. So this would be the back end, so you can be away from the nipple part. And let's just see if this is the way it's going to be making sense to do it, just to kind of push it back. Oop, I was afraid of that. Or does it make sense to push it from the back? Just kind of squeeze it and push it in. Yeah, that made much more sense. Compress it and then push it forward, and you have it lined up just like that. Okay, so there's that to the back, and hopefully we can just slide that in. And remember, this is a tight fit, so I'm just gonna wiggle. Oh, that's pretty good actually. And I guess the way you might want to orient this is top of the nib, squeeze filler here, squeeze. Okay, get that tightened down, wipe a little bit, but I'll do my final kind of polishes this plastic, so I will use my Renaissance wax in the end, and we'll plop this down, put together. So and then we go see if there's anything I can add to my little knowledge of more pens, and we shall write a little bit and see how this one does. So I will see you in a few minutes. And here we are, ready to do some writing. So few minutes of looking up this pen, and there's not a lot I'm going to be able to say about it, but I think I identified what this pen is, and I'll tell you in a second. Let's go ahead and see the top to bottom part of this, really kind of show it off at this point. And we'll do the zoom in. Hopefully the light's okay, but I think the cap, there we go, looks pretty darn good. And I will say, and I'll include the photos in the video on the screen, but this was a gold-plated cap to begin with, so I think it's brass with some gold plating, and I think I got it back to looking pretty much what it should have looked like. So here we go. There it says more on the clip. Nice little, just bracketed in, nothing special. We have the lines on the bottom, and of course this particular pen has a little dimple on the top where it looks like it was maybe dropped. But other than that, we get the nice plain blue body, and what I thought were teeth or some kind of mounted up gouged plastic was apparently some just gunk on it, maybe some ink or dried residue from something else that kind of made the tip look a bit raised or gouged out. But nope, get a smooth tip out of it, so that's a plus. And I think this plastic shined up quite well. I hope the blue's coming through. I'm having some of the lighting issues in this room again, so yeah, overall not bad. Slip on, slip off cap. Definitely feel it's just a friction fit of the inner cap against that little catch ring. So nothing special, but it does the job. And I saw online when I identified this pen, it does indeed have a break in the middle. So that is a manufactured bit, so it's not broken. And let's see, we have another plain little nib. Doesn't say anything, doesn't say 14 karat, nothing stamped on it. So we just have the top. I was able to get some gold back on, so it looks pretty good. I double checked on the loop. I'm high hopes for this one. It has a good spacing, has a good alignment, so we'll see. And there's this very simple little feed into our little hooded, semi-hooded, faux hooded, kind of domed section, nice and black. So a little contrast, which is not bad. And then of course we can show again the filling, which is a nice stainless, I assume stainless steel, I don't think it's aluminum, but stainless steel cylinder with our little J-bar that has the extra little riveted bit, so hopefully we get a good fill out of it. So we shall see. There's no breather tube, so it's squeeze as much as you can and let it go. So I think it's a good thing that they had the extra little compression bar on there. So since it's undone, let's go ahead and fill it up, and I'm gonna do it some good stuff with some Omas ink. I'm gonna add some blue with some blue. And got my towel ready. And let's see what we can do. See if we can hear anything. So dip it in and squeeze. Give it about 3 squeezes. I think we got some sound out of it. Wipe it down. And we'll check the fill at the end. Why not? Let's go ahead and square that back down. Does the job, a little aerometric. Squeeze filler, however you want to call it. And let's write. And let me show you what this guy is called. So losing just a bit. Paper. See how it did. Okay, so this is a Moore, quote, the Specialist. There we go. Yeah. So this pen probably around mid 1950s, because, you know, although starting with the more non-leakable fountain pen, the one that we've restored on this channel before, having started in the 1890s, 1880s, somewhere around there. The tail end of the Moore company was 1957. So this was at the tail end, mid to late 50s, just after the failed Moore finger pen, which I actually have some examples of that we can do eventually. So that was their like kind of attempt to kind of do something fancy with to compete with the Parker 51. Had a lot of issues, didn't do quite so well. So then we get our last throws with the Specialist. And from what I saw, I actually saw 2 examples. I didn't see very much about it, but I saw another restoration kind of post about it. And there was an open nib, and then this one with the domed section / hood. And both of them were about the same. I mean, the only difference was the section and the nib and feed, just a more obvious open spade kind of nib. This has kind of a smaller, wanting to be tubular, but just definitely a smaller, sleeker nib. And both had the same kind of inner squeeze filler, nothing special. I think they're probably interchangeable. And then of course they were both kind of blue, this kind of like simple kind of plastic blue, and they both had caps looking like this, and they were gold plated. So I think we made the right choice to go this route. And that's about it. Apparently these did not do well. I don't see a lot of information about them, so these are the last ditch efforts of a decent regional pen company out of the Northeast. And I'll say I'd like the Moores. I don't know. I've collected several, and I still have several to kind of refurbish, but I like them as a regional example. I've got a few other kind of like regional pen brands that I just kind of like for no good reason other than they were well made, smaller, and kind of underdogs in their own right. So let's go ahead and talk about this one a little bit since I don't have too much to write. Let me write the sentence. Let me check out the screen. Hopefully this is not giving you a headache. Boom, done. Actually, this is really smooth. I don't even know if you can hear anything, but this is super smooth on this Rhodia paper. It's almost like I feel like that's messy handwriting right now just because it's so easy to slide on this paper. I think I made that comment with one other pen. I can't remember what it was, but this is one of those where, you know, choose your paper for this pen because you're going to slide on this page and it's very smooth. It's not even feedbacky. It's really just like try to keep up with that pen as it moves along. So actually surprisingly nice. And it looks like we're getting I'll call it a fine line pretty consistently. And if we do a little bit of lay down with this Omas, yeah, a little bit of wetness, kind of a decent wet, but not, I don't know, moderately wet, I'll say. And we can do our press test, so no pressure. It opens up ever so slightly, but that's not a flexible pen. I mean, I just get it for sheer opening up the metal of this nib. But that is not a flexi nib, even though you have so much exposed. Doesn't really do much. And let's see if we can write fast. Yes, we can. Keeping up pretty good. Okay, let's do our reverse writing. That is smooth as well. That's very smooth. And it takes it down just a little bit, get into that extra fine territory. So you definitely can do this, and I have no hesitation because that is smooth. Not as able to keep up, but yeah, picks back up. So as a reverse writer, you don't go too fast, but would you really want to? Don't know. Let's go ahead and flip this and see if there's anything else. Let's go ahead and lay that down, let it roll. Let me grab this guy. Let's see what we're dealing with here. Let's cap it and uncap it. All right, capped from top to bottom, right at 5 inches. There we go. 5 inches. Uncapped. We have 4 3/4. 4 3/4 inch. And can we post it? So goes down deep, but does not post. And I'm not going to shove that on there, but it's not a poster. Yeah, I'm not even going to. Pushing a little bit harder. Maybe it got caught a little bit, but that's precarious. I would not say that's a secure poster, but I guess if you wanted to, you could post it and just write with it in the back, and adds a little bit of weight, but nothing substantial. But even then, it kind of moves this along, like resting on my hand, it kind of gives a little bit of a jiggle. So don't think this would be a poster. And at 4 3/4 inch, 5'9", it actually rests pretty comfortably. I can grip it up here, just kind of like with the Soyuz pen, decent amount of hood area up here, a decent amount of hood or section area, so I can kind of come up towards the nib, write it hard, or come back a little more relaxed. I can get onto this little ring, and it's subtle, it's round, it's not digging in, so if you even came back onto it, I don't think that would be a problem. So you have a lot of room to play with. So this would be overall a decently comfortable pen. It's not terribly wide, it's not terribly narrow. It is maybe 1, 2, 3, 3/8-ish diameter. So overall fairly comfortable. And like I said, this is actually surprisingly smooth. Looks like a consistent writer. Like I'm not getting any edges on this nib. It aligned really well. And yeah, I think my initial statement that this might be a beater kind of take a round pen, I guess stands up a little bit, right? It's nothing too flashy. This just looks like a nondescript, fairly like a fine line or generic kind of second, third tier pen. But, and you know, it's got the steel nib, so it's not gold. So you're not paying any premium for it. So probably got this for a couple bucks back in the day. This would do you. This is not a terrible thing. Like it's not getting any cool points. Yeah, I think this is just a solid pen. Nothing that I would like jump up and down to try and get on eBay. In fact, I actually haven't looked on eBay to see if I can find one. I kind of doubt it. You might get lucky if you wanted this, but I think this one came to me and a bunch of other pens, just kind of like an incidental finding of in a lot that I got some other stuff that I really wanted. So yeah, I'd say this is a good kind of beater pen. Like, have a little fun with it. It was fun to practice some plating on, but nothing that I think is the gem of my collection. You know, that being said, it cleaned up well, it works well. I think I'll actually get some daily writing out of this. This might be in my rotation, just to kind of use it and get it out there a little bit. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. This might actually be worth keeping because it might be the last kind of pen from the Moore Pen Company. So yet another reason to kind of keep it in the collection. Be happy that I got it looking back to brand new as close as I could. And maybe call that a day with that one. So let's go ahead and see what that 3 squeezes did. And undo. Let's find, let's hover it and get the white background. That's pretty good. That was 1 squeeze. And then it bubbles out. So I'm going to go ahead and do 1, 2, 3. I'm going to squeeze it kind of towards the back to really get that thing to fill. And do it one more time. Ooh, that's pretty good. That might be the biggest kind of value for this pen. Nondescript beater pen, probably take a beating, but when you use it, this is going to have a pretty good ink capacity just because of that particular extra riveted J-bar. Really was a good choice for them. And it's actually stood up over time, so it's actually stood up, it's not corroded, so, you know, cheap by their standards, but well made, I will say. Okay, that was really fun. I like that one a lot. So this could be a good go-to beater pen. I would call it that. Okay, so let's see what we're going to do next. Let's cap this guy. I'll clean him out in a minute. Let's see which one. I think we're whittling down because I went through my pen supplies and I didn't know that I find any more kind of hooded varieties. So I think we're going to move on to this guy, which maybe you'll recognize as an Eversharp. This is the Fifth Avenue that I mentioned. I knew I'd have one. And let's go ahead and show this variety of hooded nib. Looks like this is well hooded. Peaks out just above that little widow's peak kind of tipped hood right there, and has this kind of faceted top and almost like a little V-neck right there, a little V in the hood. So this is one of the shorter models, and it looks like this one is actually, it might be NOS, new old stock, because it has the little sticker right here which says 20R, whatever that means. It is $12.50 for this little guy. So you're paying $12.50 for a lever filler knockoff of the Parker 51. So let's get into it for next time, see if it's going to be worth that sticker price. And I'll leave that there. More right here. We'll hide you behind because this guy's the star right now. And we'll continue on. So last words are good solid rider. Interesting example of a dome / hooded nib that's surprisingly smooth. Good filler. Beater pen, so good quality in terms of just workhorse, and good example of the last line of the Moore Pen Company. So worth keeping in that regard, not hard to fix up, and kind of cute overall. So we'll leave it with that, and we'll see you next time when we tackle the Fifth Avenue.